This is Ryan from GameRoomSolutions.com, and today I'm going to walk you through how to set up addressable LED lighting in your virtual pinball cabinet. Our cabinet has the option to have all of the LED cuts and dark plex for seamless integration, which we will walk through. Then I'll walk through the software and electronic setups I did to get it working step by step. This includes direct output and visual pinball, then DOFlinx for your pinup popper front end, along with Pinball FX3. Check out our virtual pinball assembly video for a full guide on assembling our unit. Subscribe to the channel, as we also have more videos coming on SSF audio, how to implement an apron, FX3 setup, pinup popper setup, and more. Look in the description for video markers so you can skip around as needed. Let's get started. Alright, so let's just talk through the lights real quick. So essentially, I have three matrix in the back, and then the two play fields, and then those will go into the speakers. And again, the unit's going to see it as one long strip. So I have a Cat 5 or Cat 6 cable. I've cut the end off. I'm going to run that into the DN if you're staring at the table from the front on the far right one. So you can see here, the orange is going to the green, and the orange white is going to the white. Don't worry about this red cable right here, and don't worry about any of the other Cat cables coming out right there. So that's the signal coming in. This is going to plug into the Octo board or whatever. That's going to send the signal into here. And then in the middle of this matrix, you'll see there's a 5-volt and ground. That's where I'm going to wire to the power supply, which I'll talk about in a minute. So let's not worry about power. Let's just follow the data cable. So the Cat 5 into here, Cat 5 into down here where it says DN. Then I'm going to run out. It's just going to snap into the middle one to where it's DN. It's going to come out. It's going to snap into the far right matrix where it says out to in. And then right here where it says out, that's where it's going to go into the left play field right there. So you can see that snapped in. That's going to control the lights going down the left play field here to here. And then I need to run a cable from here to the right so I can keep the circuit going. So all I did is I just bought some cable here. I have a couple ends. I'm going to run that cable long enough. Doesn't really matter about the colors as long as, you know, white's to white, green's to green, and so forth. So I'm going to put those on, connect up here, left play field, go down to the right play field, connect that in. That's going to come around and come out here, so you guys can see the connector here. And then I'll have to do another connector to go from here up into the speaker and the other speaker, which I'll talk about when we do the back box. Okay, so for the power, you think, well, I'll just run power and jumper it just the same way I did the data all the way around. If you do that, you're going to get a weaker signal, and it might not carry enough signal all the way around. So these are 5-volt lights, so it's best just to get a 5-volt power supply. Calculate up your wattage and your amps. You know, whenever you buy the lights, you'll see what that is. This is what I got, which is a 5-volt 60 amp. And essentially what I did is on any of these, you can run the power. Sorry, let me zoom that in. You could run the power, you know, and try to daisy chain it together. It won't work. But in the middle, there's just a connector for power. In the middle, there's a connector for power. In the middle, there's a connector for power. So all I did was run cables from that, red and black. And so every light strip is going to connect directly to this, as opposed to just connecting one of it to it and try to daisy chaining it together. So the way that this works here, you have a normal power cable, like a computer power cable, cut it off. Black will go into the L, white will go into the N, green will go into the ground. And then you can see I have 3 plus and 3 minus. So I'll run all of the red into these pluses, the black into these minuses. So screw this up. You can stick multiple cables in here because I'll have more than 3. So, you know, you'll just start sticking those underneath and sticking underneath, and you can put, you know, like, you could do like 2, 2, 2. Put those in, tighten those down on the plus and the minus. This right here, you could put a voltmeter in there on the positive and negative and just read it, and you can adjust this to give it a little more, a little less to get it right at 5 if you want to. But you'll put all the lights in here. So that way, this is going to send power directly to each light strip individually. Again, instead of just plugging one strip into a 5-volt and trying to carry that signal all the way through. It's important it's 5 volt and not 12 volt, or you'll fry everything and have to redo all of this. So I have my data. I'm going to splice my one cable we talked about going from the playfield left to the playfield right. I'm going to run all the power. I'm just going to go ahead and double side tape that right there so it's out of the way where all my cables are. I've already ran all these. There wasn't really any soldering. It was more just about kind of electrical tape. I just went ahead and did these and did a little heat on it so it shrunk it together or whatever. But so that's it. You don't get overwhelmed because essentially all these cables hanging here, they're just the power, positive and negative, to the 3 matrix and the 2 playfield. So I'm going to wire all that up now. Okay, so I got the speaker installed, the light. I put black electrical tape around the in on both of them, just so I would know whenever I'm connecting it up. But just come around here and see how awesome that's going to look right there. That's perfect. So I'll go ahead and screw the grill in, put the screen in, put the speaker wire on, and install it in the back box. All right, let's talk a little more about the light. So this is a Teensy 4 board right here, and this is the Octo board. I'll have links to those. This Teensy board's kind of difficult to get with supply chain right now. I paid like $70 for it. I'm not sure what it normally used to be, but either way, I needed one. USB 2 into the computer. This Octo board has 2 plugs. You'll plug into the one, if you're facing the Octo board, you'll plug into the right. Make sure this Teensy board, the top one, is pushed all the way down. Get the one with pins on it so you don't have to do any soldering, and there's holes. Let me grab this so you guys can see it. So you can see there, you're just going to push that board down onto that and push it all the way down, because if it's not down, it won't work. At least it didn't for me. But don't push it down super hard. Just get it where it's nice and seated there. I've already programmed this, so you can see how it's just kind of doing that pulse. That's what it should be doing. Once the table starts up, it'll start really pulsing fast, and that's how you know it's communicating. And then basically, so the computer's talking to the Teensy, it's talking to the Octo going through here. I cut off the end of the Cat 5 cable there, and the orange is running up into the DN, which, let me see if I can focus that in for you guys. The DN, so the orange is running into that, and then I have the ground cable, which is the orange-white, and that's all you need to plug into that. I additionally, also, I don't know why or if I needed this, but I ran an additional ground just into the power supply ground. You won't run the red cable at all on those. You'll run the red and black from the middle here, and that'll go into your power supply for 5 volts, again, not 12 volts, and then you'll just start the daisy chain going around. So that's how that works. That's how that should look when you have that connected up. Again, you'll be on the right side if you're facing the Ethernet ports there. That's plugged in. I have all of mine working. The other thing I do want to show, hopefully you guys can see that. Let me turn off this light. The other thing I do want to show is on this Teensy program, and I don't know if this matters or not either, there's a special version which I'll link to that's for the 4.0, not the 3.2 version of the Teensy, but essentially I open this up and I just scroll down, and again, I don't know if it matters or not, but I scroll down to here, configured strip length, and I put that 720 because I have 720 lights. And then it automatically should open all the stuff when you install this or whatever. And then all you'll do is just hit upload. Well, actually, before you do that, go to tools, and what you'll want to do is make sure that you have the right COM selected. So for your Teensy board, so right there, COM3 Teensy. The board, I made sure and select the Teensy 4.0 for me. You can also hit get board info. This is kind of important because if you get something back here, you know it's talking to it. If you don't, you know there's some kind of problem. But anyways, all I'll do is hit upload. It'll upload that program. I've already done it, and then you can start testing. So I'll link to this guide. This is the guide I used as a high level. I did change a few things for mine. But essentially, as you get on through, again, this talks about the Teensy board. This is the 3.2 version, the Octo board. I used the 4.0 with the pins already there. So where he came in and he did some soldering of the pins, you don't have to do that if you get the ones with the pins already on it. The way our full-size pinball table is you won't have to do any of this cut and solder into anything. The strips are the perfect length across the table to do that. So I didn't have to do any soldering or any of this kind of stuff. It was real easy. I just, at worst, I might have had to twist some cables together, which you guys saw, or just put the ends and just snap them in. As we talked about before, you'll cut the end of a Cat6 cable off, and you'll have your orange and your orange white that we talked about going into the DN in the ground. And then on the right side of the Teensy, again, with that board pushed down to the Octo, on the right side of the Octo here, that's the one you're going to use because you want it for B strip 1, which is essentially the orange and orange white. That's how that works out. In the cabinet itself, again, the way our cabinet's engineered is if you're looking at the back of the table, you'll put your first dot matrix on the right, the big one in the middle, the smaller one to the left. Then you'll come down the left play field, go, just under our lockdown bar, up the right side play field, hit the right speaker, and then to the left speaker. So again, the table's engineered in this direction. This is the software you'll need, so go to the Arduino, install it. The Teensy right here, this little Duino or whatever this is the little program you have to install to make sure that it can program the board itself with what you do with the Teensy strip controller. So I just showed you guys the Teensy strip controller. Again, this isn't the correct link. I have the correct link in the description down below for the 4.0 if that's the one you get. And then this right here is for the direct software, which I'll talk about here in a second. So again, as I showed you guys, I select the Teensy 4. Okay, so I installed the Arduino, installed this one, opened up the strip controller. As I showed you guys, hit the tool. I picked the Teensy 4 board. I picked the right port that it shows up on. And then right here, I went down and changed that, which I showed you guys, the strip link to 720. And then I hit the button, did the upload. So that's where we're at up to that point. There's a couple more things that we need to do. One is I'll go ahead and talk about the cabinet file. So for the cabinet file, this is what basically tells the software how your cabinet's configured. So we'll have a copy of this for guys that get our cabinet or whatever, but you can see here, I changed it to the LED, the number of LEDs is basically 720 because again, strip 1, it just sees it as one long LED. I told it which COM port it's on, which is COM 3. And now what we want to do is tell it what we want each of them to do and how we want them to operate. So he has a really awesome guide here on his site showing you the directions that stuff's going to go if you just tell it to go that direction. So the way I have it configured on mine is essentially for the back, this connects all 3 of those matrix together. So it's 48 wide, 8 high. That's how many lights it is. It's 48 wide, 8 high. And then for me, I had to go bottom up, alternative right, left. That was the correct order for it to essentially the way that it's orientated into the cabinet, to where you guys saw in the other video where the AC/DC is in the right direction on the back. So PF back is what that's called, 48/8 this. Then you have the 144 LEDs for the playfield, so the right, the left. What might be a little confusing here is you have to tell it, okay, well the back starts basically at LED 1, which is the first LED in the entire 720. This is a little backwards here because I went to the left. So if you multiply all those together, the next LED would be 385. You add the 144 to that. The next one's going to be 529. So you can see I'm also telling these to go different directions for how it needs to be set up. So again, if you have our cabinet, we can give you the cabinet file for this configuration. So again, as I go to the speaker right, I actually go to speaker left, 673, 697. So everything's working how I wanted it to work there. So this is, again, how many LEDs are in there, which COM port it's on, how it's configured on your cabinet, and which way the lights move. And then down here is essentially, you'll leave this as LED Wiz equivalent space 30. You'll leave that alone. But basically what you're doing here is you're saying, okay, the PF back, which is what we already defined up here, is going to be number 1, which I'll show you what that means here in a minute on how the shapes are interpreted. And then the right's number 4, the left's number 7, speaker 10, 13. And you can see how this is going to go out. So the other thing I had to add is this auto config enabled true. I had to add that line into mine to get this to work just after the toys here. So I did that. So this right here we still need to configure, and I'll show you guys how to do this. So we'll do this with the direct output, but this is how ours is set up for our table. Okay, so let's talk about how to configure this so that way all the effects that happen for the table, all the different lighting effects, actually correlate to your cabinet file so everything works as expected. So there's this direct output framework config tool. I'll link to it in the description, but what you're going to do is sign up. It's free. Sign up for a free account. When you get in there, go into My Account, and you're going to change the LED Whiz devices to 0, and then change the number of WS2811, that's the device we're using to communicate, to 1. So that's just going to tell us, that's going to tell it what it needs to be. You can save that. Go into Combine Toys here, and what we're going to do is we need to combine for our back matrix, both of our sides, and then our speakers, and that's why I've made 4 different combos here. So again, on our cabinet file, you can see here that for the playfield back, which correlates to the all the matrix here, the 48 high by, or the 8 high by 48 wide. You can see here the PF back, that's going to be number 1, and then we can change this around as we go. So just to show you here, that's why I want 1 for the back, 1 for the right, 1 for the left, and then 1 for the speakers, because I'm going to have each speaker do the same thing. So you can see here I created a combo. What you'll do is just RGB addressable, and then you'll start selecting stuff that's eligible, and you can combine those together. So you can see here on the combo 1, I did the back flashers MX and the back effects MX. On combo 2, the right flashers and right effects. Combo 3 would be for the left part of the playfield. And then for the 4s, the back flashers MX and the back strobe MX is what I did for the speakers. So once you get those in, they'll be saved, and now we just need to assign them out. So we'll go to the port assignments here. You'll select your config, and now we just need to configure it the same as your folder. So you can see here, the number 1 is the back. So I'm going to go down to my combo 1, because remember that's the back. So there's the red, green, and blue. So port 4, again, if I go here, port 4 is my right. So I can go in here and I'll select combo 2, which is my right. On number 7, combo 3, which is my left. On 10 is going to be combo 4, and on 13 is going to be combo 4, which is my speakers. I'm using the same one for each of my left and right speakers for this. You can generate it, save it. It's going to give you a file. You're going to drop that file into your direct output folder, wherever it installed, typically C, direct output. But you'll save these files in there. This is going to tell it, essentially tell it what to do, what it looks like. Flash this color here, flash that color there, pulse this color, whatever it is. And again, that's just tied back to your cabinet file here. So you have to do this in order to make sure everything works. So I'll save that over and show you guys that now. Okay, so the direct shapes in the INI file we just generated from the DOF Config Tool, we're going to put it in our direct output folder. Override anything if you need to, but that's where that'll go. Our cabinet is in this config folder here. So from there, we're going to go to the global config editor. It'll pull up, ask you where's your INI file, which is your direct output folder. So again, it's going to look there, find the file that you generated that's in the INI format. And then the next one, let me grab my mouse here. Go to the cabinet config, and you'll select your cabinet file. And then from there, file and save as. And then as you save as, you're going to put it in your config folder. So I just click the direct output config folder. Save one called global config. Save it again. You can do the underscore pinball X, the underscore B2S server. So those are what you want, those 3 right there. So you can see my cabinet file of an older one that I was testing with, an older global config I was testing with. But these 3, it's the same file. Just save it 3 times and make sure it's named like that. And then you can boot up a table and make sure everything's working. All right, so we have visual pinball working with our lights and our surround sound feedback. So now we need to also get the lights and the surround sound working both in the Pinup popper interface, so your front end, and then we'll do it for Pinball FX3 as well. So in order to, when you're using direct output, the visual pinball can read that and it'll just work. If you need to get it to work with something else, you have to connect it essentially to the direct output, and that's what DOFlinx is for. It links it together. So there'll be a link in the description. Download DOFlinx, and then you'll just export that in your direct output folder. So you can see here, once I find my mouse, that it added a bunch of files here. And then what you have to do is you have to go in and tell DOFlinx what you want it to do, what you want it to recognize. So it'll come with the sample INI file here, and there's a bunch of them in here. So essentially, I started with the update minimal there, and then I also added this SF flippers supplemental file. So just to show you, you're going to have an INI file called DOFlinx. It's going to be a .ini. So that's what you'll have to create and put in here, but you can use those as a guide. So just to show you what mine is and kind of talk through it, I added the debug equals 1 and the show and taskbar equals 1. What that does is that'll pop this up so you can see it and make sure everything's working. Once everything's working, you'll just either set those to 0 or just delete those. So you can see here, I'm pointing to my direct output so it knows that file. That's the one that we created and downloaded. The BLS server, we created that as well. The B2S server. So the B2S server is in your tables file. Make sure that you have the backslash on the end or it won't work. You can see the direct output global file. That's one of the ones we created earlier. So I'm just pointing to that. And then for FX3, this will create a folder for you as part of the DOFlinx that's in your direct output. So you'll point to that pup player with the back. You will want to go, if you type in FX3 default triggers, you'll want to copy all the default triggers in there. That essentially means that if you open a table, it knows what to do for the sounds, for your surround sound feedback. Make sure that the dash is on the end there as well, or the backslash. Here's 2 more settings I put in there. This is the processes. So this is what it'll look for in system tray, like in your task manager. So when the Pinball FX3 is launched, it'll know where all the stuff is here. So from the supplemental, I didn't have my flippers weren't making noise. So I added these in here from that. So just so you guys can look at that. So essentially it's saying, hey, look there for that. And then it's telling it what to do at different key events. My left shift and right shift are still my flippers, so that's gonna work with that. So once you create that, you can save it. Another thing I wanna talk about is this caused me some problems. I had my user account control settings. I had that at the bottom because I hate whenever it pops up constantly like, do you really want to install this? If you do that, it'll cause issues. Put it on the next to lowest setting. And then you don't want to run DOFlinx, Pinup Popper. You won't run anything as administrator. Just run them all straight. So that's one setting I had to change in order to do that. So you'll start DOFlinx, and when you do, actually here, I'll quit. And let me go ahead and just start it. I don't care about that. Oh, once you have that how you want it, here's another thing too. Once you get the DOFlinx, go to the register direct output, and I right-clicked and I did run that as administrator. It just ran like ran a little bat file or something with it. So I did that one time just to register everything to make sure that it was all going to work. And I'm going to go ahead and start DOFlinx here, just to show you guys that when it starts, it's booting up. It'll actually, one way you know it's working is it'll tell you it's working like that. So that's running there, right? Okay, so now technically my Pinup Popper should be working with the lights because DOFlinx is running, right? So I could pop that up and show the lights. My lights are working. So if it hits something up high, you can see there that that's working. So yeah, that's it. That's DOFlinx is all good in my Pinup system, so I can go ahead and exit out. And you can see here that it might take a second for your lights to kick back on in the front end. There it is. It usually takes 5 seconds or so for mine to kick back on, which you can see here. So I'm cooking along. Visual Pinball's good. Pinball FX3 is good. All of my lighting's good. My surround sound effects are good. Topper's good. Full DMD. So quite a bit of setup has been done.